Joseph J. Daynes served as president of the Grant Stake from 1924 to 1933. President Joseph Daynes Jr. came from a rich background of Mormon history. His father became the first tabernacle organist at age 16.
I'll tell you how he was discovered. Brigham Young came to this group of pioneers that arrived and saw this young man playing on this little organ we still have in our store, and said, and he had always been told that the Lord would provide for everything. He never did know, even though the organ was being built, he didn't know who was going to play it. So here comes this young man. He was then 14 years old, I think. And
once while a young man, Daynes Jr. was watching his father practice on the great organ. President Brigham Young strolled into the tabernacle. He introduced himself to the young Daynes and told him to remember, as long as he lived, that he had shook hands with Brigham Young, the president of the church. While a young man, Daynes partnered with his father to start the Daynes Music Store. In 1895, Daynes married Blanche Woodruff, the daughter of then church president Wilford Woodruff. They had met 2 years earlier at the World's Fair, where Joseph Daynes' father was playing the organ for the Tabernacle Choir. President Woodruff performed the marriage in the Salt Lake Temple. It was his first marriage performed in that temple. During his marriage, he served as a mission president in Great Britain, then as a counselor in the bishopric. He was serving as counselor in the Granite Stake presidency when he was called as the Grant Stake's first president. It was May 25, 1924. Many of the new residents of the area did not have cars or even horses and buggies. Most of them walked large distances to get to church. Less than 2 months after being installed, President Daynes organized the Belvedere Ward. A building site was soon purchased on 607 Downington Avenue, and a fine brick chapel was dedicated in September 1925.
When the Hillcrest Ward was organized in 1924, they built a little building on the northwest corner of their grounds in one day, so they could hold their meetings that Sunday.
1924-25. I was 4 years old when we moved out there. They had a little building out on the north side of it's all lawn now. It's kind of like a chicken coop. It reminded me of that. And I remember going to primary in that little building and looking out of the window over to seeing them build a stake center in the old Hillcrest Ward. Yeah, I can remember going to primary there, and I'm probably in that picture that someone has.
On August 16, 1925, Daynes created 2 new wards, the South Gate and the Central Park wards. A building was donated and hauled to the 2700 South and Main location to be used as the first meeting house for the South Gate Ward. It was formerly used by the Burton Ward to hold scouting activities. The Central Park Ward built their building on land purchased from John Winder's farm. It is shown here, located on 306 East, 2700 South. During this year, a number of slogans were sent out by the stake presidency. 1. Every member on the ward records. 2. Ward teachers making 2 family visits every month. 3. Every family represented at fast meeting. 4. Better order in all meetings. 5. Observe home night.
1933, 32 or 33, in May, the stake had a contest to improve the sacrament meeting attendance. They told the ward that had the best attendance, the sacrament meeting in May of that year, the President Heber J. Grant would come out and talk to the ward. be their speaker. So in our ward, the bishopric had Apostle Francis M. Lyman come and talk to us during the month of May. And with that help and with the cooperation of all the ward members, our Hillcrest Ward won the contest. And the following Sunday was Fast Sunday, and the first Sunday in June, President Heber J. Grant came and talked to us. And I can still remember shaking his hand. He stayed after the meeting and shook everybody's hand that wanted to come up there to the pulpit.
On September 19, 1925, President Daynes' second counselor, Joseph Anderson, slammed into a trolley car with his sedan, suffering a brain concussion and severe lacerations. On February 19, 1927, Wells Ward walked off with the Grant Stake Basketball Championship by taking 2 games from the Hillcrest Ward. Thursday, September 1, 1927, with an exhibit of flowers fashioned in the form of a beehive, the Wilford Ward won first prize at the opening flower show of the Grant Stake Relief Society at the Grant Stake Tabernacle, 33rd South and State Streets. East Mill Creek was second and the Waterloo Ward third in competition with 14 wards. Mrs. Winifred B. Daynes was general chairman. The variety and beauty of the blooms in the hundreds were of such high quality that the officers of the society said the show will be made an annual event. When the stock market collapsed on October 29, 1929, the country plunged into the Great Depression.
And in those days, in the Depression years, men had a hard time finding work. But a woman could get work any time she wanted. And usually the working pay for women was more than that for the men. I used to do this work, and then I would be able to send my folks $50 a month, which was big money in those days. But you see, I'd accumulate the wages I had, and fix so I could live as well as they could live. And that helped them tremendously, as well as myself. It helped me gain a bigger testimony, and it helped me to realize that I could do something in my life.
My teenage years, I grew up in the Depression, but I didn't know I was hurting because I had plenty to eat and with the cow and the chickens. And
serving as state president, I'm sure it was difficult because it was a very difficult time for everyone. It was the time of the Great Depression, and I'm sure that a lot of time was taken up with these matters. The Daynes also had hard times. The Daynes Music Company thrived, but in one night in 1931, a fire hit all 3 floors of the music company and they lost everything.
President Daynes teamed up with 6 other stakes to seek work for their members. They formed the Deseret Employment Bureau. This was to become the root of the church's current welfare system.
Ice cream, you scream, we all scream for ice cream.
During this time, the temperance societies were advocating outlawing the selling of alcohol. President Grant agreed with this and started emphasizing strict enforcing of the word of wisdom, plus any habit-forming beverages, including coffee and tea. It was during this time that the word of wisdom truly became the benchmark of Orthodox membership that it is known for today. President Daynes spoke in General Conference on October 1927 about keeping the word of wisdom. he received a special commendation from the church for the Grant Stake's outstanding work in this area. In these early days of the stake and throughout the church, each ward had to raise yearly budget funds in order to operate their programs. In the Grant Stake, the wards staged elaborate carnivals that lasted 3 to 4 days. The Relief Society held bazaars and paid dues to raise money.
This had a lot of work, working on the building, trying to get the building in order, you know, so we could move into a building. The biggest thing we had was a bazaar. Nowadays, they don't even know what a bazaar is. But anyway, we had a beautiful big bazaar every workday. And we had different assignments, and were asked to donate different things. I remember one donation that we had. Every sister in the ward was asked to donate a project that she made by herself, just not something that she picked up from somebody else. Like, for instance, I'll tell you the one I did. We used to raise chickens in our barn out here, and we had the most beautiful eggs you ever saw. And after people didn't buy as many as we could sell, why, we made cakes out of it. And I made angel food cakes. I remember the days that we'd take our donation over there towards the ward, you know. We'd have to show them the donation that we could make out of our project. And I remember taking dozens of angel food cakes over to the ward to sell. And I never lost any cake.